Alright YouTube, so we were back, of course, talking about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we've obviously been talking about Remake Part 2 a lot lately. With the upcoming FF7 25th anniversary news, we're kind of hopeful that that might pertain to Remake, but also we have Katase confirming earlier this year that at some point within 2022 they do want to talk about Remake, and we're kind of hoping that that would be a revealed trailer, teaser, whatever. So I figured we'd do a video about this, kind of talking about the things that we want from a Remake Part 2 trailer. So some of the things that kind of matter before we get into the discussion is what exactly would that initial trailer be? Is it going to be a teaser trailer, kind of a smaller minute-long, minute-and-a-half long trailer that kind of showing you just a little bit of the game, or will we get a full-blown trailer? It's kind of hard to say because we've seen them really do both in somewhat recent years. If you look to like the re-reveal, so to speak, of Remake back in 2019, State of Play, we only got a minute-long teaser, but then just like a few weeks or so later, we got the full-blown E3 showcase. It was like 30 minutes long, where they showed us a shit ton about the game. But still, that initial re-reveal was only like a minute-long video. But if you look even more recently than that, we have the reveal of Final Fantasy XVI, which was a game that was rumored, but we hadn't seen or heard anything about it yet. And when they reveal it, they drop a 4-minute trailer that shows us so many aspects of the game, from story to characters to locations to summons to gameplay, all kinds of shit. But even more recently than the 16 reveal, we had the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 4, which also came out of nowhere, and they drop a 3.5-minute trailer on us. The differences between these reveals, however, is that the Kingdom Hearts trailer is essentially one cohesive narrative where we're seeing Sora wake up in Quadratum. This is pretty much a direct follow-up to Kingdom Hearts 3/Reminds, and this Final Fantasy 16 reveal is kind of gameplay and reveals and things from all over the game, potentially. So if Square Enix were to go that route and give us a full-blown trailer with the initial reveal of Remake Part 2, it's hard to say whether or not they want to do kind of a trailer that shows us just a bit of everything, kind of all over Part 2, different locations and gameplay and characters and stuff like that, or if they want to go the route of what they did with Kingdom Hearts 4 and just kind of give us a lengthy trailer but more or less set in one location. If I had to make a guess, I'd probably say it'd be the latter, because the thing with Kingdom Hearts 4 and also Remake Part 2 is that they are following up a narrative. They're following up a story that happened before them, whereas 16 is obviously a brand new game, a brand new story. So they kind of almost have to, show a bunch of different random shit to kind of get you enticed. And I'm also sort of basing that off of some of the reveals that we've had for Remake in the past. With the initial first look at the actual game, the 2015 PlayStation Experience, the gameplay trailer, all we got to see was early game stuff, right? Chapter 1 and 2 type shit. And even with that 2019 State of Play like re-reveal, it's pretty early gameplay stuff. For the most part, it's Chapter 1 and 2 stuff. They do sprinkle in a little bit of later stuff like Chapter 4 and 5, where our group's going to the Sector 5 reactor. But again, for the most part, it's still really early game stuff.
Are you okay?
So if I'm just making a guess here, I would assume that that initial reveal for Part 2 would do something similar. I think later trailers beyond that would, of course, show us random bits of gameplay from all over the game. But I think the initial one, we're going to stick early game, and it'd probably be something around Calm Flashback, and maybe a little bit beyond Calm, like Chocobo Farm, or maybe the Midgar, Zalem swamp area. But if they want to give us a trailer that gives us a bit of a follow-up to the ending of Remake / episode intermission, that's kind of a cohesive narrative trailer, they might just stick with like Calm Flashback specifically. I don't know what they'd show us. Like maybe they show a bit of like Cloud and Sephiroth in the back of the truck. Maybe they show a little bit of the fight with like the giant, green dragon or whatever, and then maybe us walking into Nibelheim, and then you cut the trailer there, and that's kind of all you need. Now, they could go further than that. That's just a bit of speculation. They could show off some of Nibelheim being burned down and destroyed by Sephiroth, and we've already seen that a couple of different times when it comes to Remake, so it's not really a surprise. It's kind of already there. It's already expected. They could tease that a bit with a trailer. They even multiple times throughout Remake show us Cloud having like a memory of Tifa crying over her father after Sephiroth had killed him. So we've already seen multiple different aspects of like the Nibelheim incident, so they could just expand on some of this shit that we've already seen with some sort of a teaser or actual trailer. Now, all of this so far in the video is to say that that's what I expect when it comes to the first initial reveal for Part 2. In terms of what I want, is I want the 16 treatment. I want a lengthy trailer, 3-4 minutes, that shows us a shit ton of just different aspects of Part 2. The main thing for me right now that I want to know when it comes to Part 2 is how does traversing the world of Gaia work? Are we going to be traveling from location to location on foot? Are we walking from Calm to Chocobo Farm to Mithril Mine? Or is it going to be some sort of like fast travel system? How is it going to work? That's the main thing I want to know right now more than anything. Now, putting that aside, because that's pretty much the burning question for pretty much everybody out there, obviously want to see new gameplay elements. If there's new combat elements like team attacks and things like that, I definitely want to see it. I wouldn't mind them teasing more like future party members. We've already seen Cait Sith, so they could tease us and show us like Cait Sith riding the giant Moogle. I don't know if you go so far as to show anything from Cid or Vincent, because we don't even know for sure if they're going to be in the next game. We're very, very hopeful for that, but we just don't know. That's another thing too, talking about this trailer, but this inevitable trailer. It's kind of hard to speculate on what would be shown here just because we don't know how far into the story we're going to go with the next game. Because we can speculate all day and night that we want to see some Gold Saucer shit, which is, kind of on my list. I do want to see some minigames from Gold Saucer, Cosmo Canyon shit, Nibelheim, Sid, Vincent, all that other shit, right? Tiny Bronco, airship, whatever the case. But at the end of the day, we just don't even know if we're going to get that far into the story when it comes to the next game. So we can speculate, but we just don't even know if we're going to get that shit. And part of the reason why I do want a 16 reveal that just shows us a lot of different aspects of Part 2 is just because we know that Part 2 is going to be very similar to Part 1. Like, the game's going to play probably like 99% the same. There might be some new gameplay elements in terms of like the combat. Maybe, traversing the world, exploring the world can be different. But at the end of the day, the game's going to feel and play very, very similar. So you don't really need to show that shit again. We don't need basic combat of Cloud just fighting random enemies unless you just want to show off those enemy designs. Which, of course, I'm not against, because I'm down to see like future enemies. I do want to see what like some of the later game enemies look like in Remake. I'm excited for that. But in terms of like showing off your game, we know what the combat looks like already, right? But when it comes to a Part 2 trailer, right now my wants are just pretty basic, man. Like, I do want some narrative stuff in the trailer. I want to see what kind of stories and stuff we're getting into with the next game. But I do want to know what the world's going to be like. That's the main thing for me, because we haven't really had an overworld Final Fantasy game in quite some time. I personally think, while 12 didn't have like an overworld, I think the world design for 12 was pretty decent. Obviously 13 was linear up until Grand Pulse, but Grand Pulse was not too dissimilar from something like 12. 15 obviously had a pretty decent-sized open-world map, but it was obviously kind of boring, and there just wasn't a whole lot to do, and it was boring side quests and things like that. I'm just hoping that when it comes to Remake Part 2 and beyond, that we find some sort of nice middle ground for big areas to explore without it being a wasteful overworld. It's pointed out to me recently, this is a little bit off-topic, sort of, that Final Fantasy Type 0 was the last Final Fantasy to actually have an overworld. I was watching somebody review that game randomly, I don't even know why, and prior to that game coming out in 2011, it was Final Fantasy 9. In the year 2000, because obviously 10/10-2 didn't have overworlds to explore. They were pretty linear games. So in the last like 22 years or so, we've only had 2 Final Fantasy games, 9 and Type 0, that had an actual overworld to explore. Hope and Remake remedies that. To sort of close out the video here towards the end, my expectations for what they're going to do with the trailer would be early game stuff. I don't know if that would involve gameplay or not, but definitely obviously cutscene type shit. I expect mostly Nibelheim Incident flashback type shit. If they happen to show gameplay from that, they might show some Mount Nibel fighting, or maybe us fighting that green dragon. But I wouldn't be surprised if the trailer ended with them like teasing or showing the Midgar Zolom, because realistically, that's going to be the first boss fight that we have, at least as our group, as our party, unless they add some additional shit in beforehand. So I wouldn't mind seeing him. That'd be pretty cool, because he's such an iconic enemy from the game. Something I wouldn't be surprised if we got in this part is a bit of hopeful wishing that they could throw at the end of any one of these trailers is something with Zack. What is going on with Zack? Tease a little bit of his story, his narrative, whatever he's doing in the next game. All we really know is that he's looking for Aerith. He went to the church. She's not there. So what is he doing after that? I don't know. They could tease that. We've seen him do that with the Kingdom Hearts 4 reveal. Again, going back to that comparison. We see all Sora, all Quadratum. At the very end, they show you Donald and Goofy, presumably in the underworld, looking for Hades. And maybe try to find a way to bring Sora back, more than likely. But of course, what I'm going to pass off to you guys. So in terms of what we're discussing here with this video, we're talking about that first initial reveal trailer for Remake Part 2. For one, do you think it's going to be a teaser, a little short minute and a half trailer? Think it's going to be a full-blown trailer, 2.5, 3, 4 minutes long, and regardless of whichever one of those you think it's going to be, what do you think they're going to show us? Are we going to be seeing aspects of like the full game, just different parts of the game, different locations and characters and enemies and shit, or are we just going to kind of, or is it just going to be mostly early game stuff that's kind of continuing on from the ending of Remake Part 1/episode intermission? But I guess really the actual question is, what is it that you want from that initial reveal trailer for Remake Part 2? Either way, dudes, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new ones today. More Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @YT. And my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description. And in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.